This is Let's Talk Call-In Radio. Getting to the root causes of the important issues of the day, this on-the-air community forum believes your voice matters, not ours, and welcomes all thoughts and views from our listeners without judgment. Yes. Please join today's conversation by calling 415-663-8492 or 8317. And,
what are we talking about today?
Well, we're talking about this. That's Shelley Rugg at the controls of our little starship today. And Stephen Hurwitz sitting across the room. Hello.
I know we can't swear online, but can we sniffle?
Please don't swear.
Can we blow our nose?
You can sniffle. He's got a touch of the allergies, so forgive him. Shelley's going to have to be cutting him off now and again. But yes, so your hosts are, yes, as I said, Shelley and Stephen and myself, Paul Reffell. When you call in, and please do call in, 415-663-8492. Shelley will put you in the system. You'll hear a little noise. And wait until she says you're on the air. And then please give us your first name. Turn your radio down. And please, watch your language. This is live radio, so keep it clean, please. And we're talking about toxic masculinity. Why? Oh, I don't know. Why? What is toxic masculinity? Tell us what it is, Stephen.
I was going to keep my mouth shut this whole time, actually. Do I have to?
No, but
yes, I'm. You know something? We have an expert in the field with us. That's Paul Reffell. He actually is an expert.
I am a toxic masculine guy,
and I'm going to read from his.
I don't believe it.
I'm going to read his statement. If you ask me, he says, "What we seem to be living in alpha mask America, in which natural human masculinity becomes warped, overly aggressive, bullying, narcissistic, rapacious, boundlessly acquisitive, all of which are exemplified by the President of the United States."
Did I say that? Good heavens. No, I didn't. Ha! See?
I added that.
Yes, well, all of which is rewarded by the system created by them over centuries. Anger is the only emotion you're allowed to show if you're a real man. This is one of the old saws that everyone comes up with and which is sort of believable. That's why we saw a certain person getting so angry because we weren't going to give him the job. So I'm guessing, toxic masculinity, I think, in my mind, we're talking about toxic white masculinity as well. It has to do with white privilege and why they're all so angry and why other white guys are not happy because they feel like they're losing their country. Everywhere they look. I read actually an interesting article this morning of somebody who went to just a small city. I've forgotten what city it was. Anyway, it's on the East Coast. And you drive through there. Oh, it was where Trump was giving one of his rallies, his most recent rally. And that town, it's a city, it was a manufacturing city, and it was always white. I mean, it was just a white place. They had shipyards there. Italians came. Italian immigrants worked in the shipyards and in the places where they had all this manufacturing going on. Of course, the manufacturing went away. Now it's all, everywhere you look. The reporter said, as you walk down the street, there were headscarves. So it's become this very diverse place. One white guy was complaining, you can't get a slice of pizza in this town anymore because it's all falafel shops and great food. That's why they were attending his rally. They don't actually live in that town, but they live on the outskirts and they I think that's part of the toxicity of it all, is that they think they're losing their country. They think that everything's changing too fast, and they want to be behind a guy who says what they think, which is
I think
angry.
I think you're letting the African American man off the hook, though.
Sure.
White guys.
Sure.
Well, you guys, we have a caller.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, caller, you are on the air. What's your name?
Hi, this is Robin
Robin.
from Alabama.
Hey,
All
Robin,
right.
how are you?
Good. I've been behind enemy lines for 3 months now.
Apparently they're not listening. Good.
I tease about it. But it's very interesting because, first of all, I was very honored and blessed to be spending a lot of time with Donna and Paul when they were working on redefining seduction. And, really felt it so easily explained what was going on. It really got to the core of things. And except for the point at which we all decided that my husband was actually an alpha male wearing a beta mask, so no one would know. He was afraid we would do something.
So you're talking about the book that Paul and Donna wrote.
Yeah, I helped them a little bit on editing.
A little bit. You edited the whole thing.
Okay.
Seduction Redefined, available online and probably nowhere else, but online certainly. Explain a little bit, if you would, about the mask, the alpha mask, and all that.
And so I think the thing is that, there's always a percentage, which is actually there's always a percentage of the population, 2 to 3%, that's going to be sociopathically wired. And there's also a percent of the population that's going to be that leader, alpha, very, a lot of like that sort of warrior alpha aggression energy, which if channeled correctly, you can become a good leader. But for the most of us, we're just trying to have relationships and be in community, men and women. The betas, it's like, you just want to have a good life. Yeah. And you don't have that same level of aggression. But our culture, and it's interesting, they show that cultures that focus on working together, working in community, where it's culturally the norm that everybody get along, the percentage of people diagnosed as sociopathic is lower. In America, they say biologically it should be like 3%. In America, it's like at 10% because we reward that kind of behavior.
Sociopathic behavior. Yeah.
And we have a really intense culture. Because some people were talking about the raging of the old white men. And I just wanted to talk specifically to the culture of Kavanaugh, and that, and with the fraternity and then the college sports and high school as well, within that culture, it is pushed and promoted to basically rape and pillage. In the fraternity that Kavanaugh belonged to and George W. Bush belonged to, and many, I think actually Christopher Wray, head of the FBI, belongs to it, is DEEC, Delta Kappa Epsilon. And that fraternity has been notorious for generations of the kinds of things they do, and it happens everywhere, whether it's University of Alabama or Yale. And one of the common things that people were talking about with Kavanaugh was the fact that how they would do this grain alcohol drink to get the girls really drunk. They called it Purple Jesus. And so when I was dating my first husband, as everybody out there knows, I've had 3.5 husbands. But husband number one was a University of Alabama football player playing for Bear Bryant, and he also pledged DEEC fraternity. And I was like 16 at the time. But David was very much a beta male and a really nice, kind guy, but he was a great athlete. And he came from an upper middle-class family, but he was always kind of chasing after being with the big dogs. And the reason he pledged DEEC, which was usually for the very wealthy and entitled white boys, was because they also liked to pledge, star football players. So anyway, the first year David was at DEEC, I didn't drink at that point in time. I went up to go up for a weekend and see him. And he was a pledge at the time, and he was very nervous about me coming. I didn't quite know why, and he said, whatever you do, do not drink anything unless I give it to you. And he said, I'm not going to let you out of my sight. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet. And
oh, wow.
So sure enough, he started getting harassed by the guys. I was there with the dates of two other pledges, two other girls, and he started getting harassed, and so they made our boyfriends go off with them. And so we were just sitting there, and I was drinking a Coca-Cola that David had got me, and two girls come up from what was considered one of the inferior sororities. So the girls from the lesser sororities would take crap off of. Oh, is that a bad word? No, I can say that one, I think. would take flack off of these guys in order to push their way up so they could get in with a deke. So they came up and said, hey, we made this punch. You want to have some? Mm. And I said, well, I don't drink alcohol. They said, oh, it's just spiked a little bit like they do at like a Baptist wedding. And I was like, okay. And it was in a big red Solo cup. So I drank it, and it was hot, as it always is here. And, and then they came back by about 30 minutes later and said, have another one. And then one of my friends who was, she was like a sophomore. And so she'd seen the whole scene. And she said, Robin, can you stand up? And I said, what? And I stood up, and my knees went out from under me, and I totally collapsed because I was drinking giant Solo cups of grain alcohol. Oh, and boy. She literally just got me up under my arms and dragged me out of the Deke house, took me to her sorority house, and said, you're not going back over there.
Wow.
And then David, she left a message, for David where I was. And then, David was like, I don't want you to come back and visit me until I'm not a pledge anymore. Because they try to they love to, go after the pledge's girlfriend.
Oh, my gosh.
And so it was a common thing.
Right, and so if they didn't give up their girlfriends, then they weren't cool and didn't get in.
Oh, yeah, but the fact was that they were always getting girls drunk and then taking advantage of them. Yeah. I mean, passed out drunk. And it was just common knowledge. And, I hated that whole scene, and thank goodness David the next year transferred back down to Mobile to go to school with me. But he hated it, too. He was trying to really fit into that whole world, and he was like, this is disgusting. It was just went against what he stood for. And, but that's that whole culture, and that culture is still exactly the same.
Right, it gets
still
passed on.
Young boys, white entitled boys, the frat house thing of getting girls drunk and taking advantage of them. And so it really disturbs me, and I belong to this little group. It's a closed Facebook group that we started the day after Trump was elected, called The Sanctuary.
Hey, so Robin?
Yeah.
All we got from the girls were barfing in the back seat of the car.
Would you still kiss them?
if they got drunk at the party.
So you were talking about this Facebook group, Sanctuary?
So we formed a group. It's mostly girlfriends and guy friends. It's friends of mine who are blue dots in red states, and some of us expats that live outside of the area, which, having been home in Alabama unexpectedly for 3 months and probably 2 more months, has been like a saving grace. So when all this stuff started with Kavanaugh, one night, I think it was last weekend or weekend before, our page just lit up, and all these women in the group that I had no idea started sharing these stories of horrible rapes that they had been through, and I've known some of them all my life, and I had no idea. And it was a very upsetting night, and then it turned out 2 of the women, who are both very powerful attorneys and strong women, both talked about being raped by a University of Alabama football player 2 years apart. They private messaged each other. It was the same football player.
Oh, my gosh.
And then somebody else came in. So out of this group of about 800, and probably half are women, there were 3 that had all been raped by the same man.
Wow.
So anyway, so for me, it's like I had no idea. And they're 10 years. They're in their late 40s, early 50s, so they're younger than me. So it just shows that culture is still going on. So we're still raising.
And those guys where are they now? They're probably in government, or they're lawyers, or they're judges.
They're judges. They're lawyers. And people know who they are.
Yeah.
People know who they are. And just like people knew about Roy Moore, I'd heard about Roy Moore because I had friends from Gadsden years ago. So being a pedophile.
He garnered half the votes.
Still got
in Alabama.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling, the culture we're living in right now. It's just...
And, the thing is one of my friends, we got together the other night because that weekend a bunch of us got together because we were all so shook by, that happened to you and so-and-so did it. And, and we just talked about the fact that, how have we not been able to stop it? And the reason people don't tell, these were friends of mine, they never told, is because of you'll just get re-raped all over again.
Yeah.
And so Yeah, so what disturbs me is still seeing it being perpetuated in an institutionalized way. And those geeks and stuff, they all knew each other. They're all being groomed for certain positions.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a very toxic system that still, it's not just the raging of the old white men.
Yeah.
Their sons and grandsons are being raised that way.
And they're all scared that it's all going to get taken away from them. All these uppity women and uppity blacks and all those immigrants. They're all getting uppity and saying they want to be like us. Well, we can't have that.
The biggest thing that they hate, which is, I know this is going to sound terrible, that they hate is the rise of the black star, the black football player, the black professional athlete being, like the Kardashians are all with black men. And the rise of famous women choosing black men is like their worst Mandingo slavery fear ever happening. So that's the one thing I have to say I take delight in. Is stop them. But as Steve said, too, that culture, I know from my black women friends in the group, is just as sexist in a different way.
Sure. And in a different way and for different reasons, really, I guess. I don't know. Somebody, again, I read an article this week where they were explaining some of this, some of the black sexism is about angry blacks who want a piece and can't get a piece of the action, socially and politically and all that, and that they're just trying to claim ownership of something, if that happens to be a woman, and you can do whatever you like with what you own. I don't know if that's true or not. But.
Well, it sounds like it comes out of religion, that idea of subjugating women, and that, the man is the leader of the household. And
Well, and if you think about how oppressed, the mark and the mar of slavery, and now that we know, that kind of trauma is in the DNA. So I think there's this whole woundedness around being oppressed, and often people who are oppressed, they fight out linearly instead of up against the oppressor. They go sideways against anybody around them.
Sure.
But what a great topic to talk about, because it's,
well, I don't know. It's so depressing, but I felt like we had to talk about it just because it's so much in the forefront of the news right now. And I don't know. Is it changing? Is it enough to just call it out? Is it enough for the Me Too movement to come forward and empower women to talk about what happened to them in the past and trying to? Are they educating their daughters about this? Are they telling their daughters about it?
And their sons. I mean, I think it's time that we empower men to take a new kind of leadership.
Yeah.
Instead of this underground, hidden, secretive, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine kind of leadership. What if we really have a kind of male leadership that makes the world a truly better place for everyone?
I was thinking, I grew up in a small town, and Robin, you might have too. It seems like in a small town like I grew up, it's more covert than overt. It's there, but it's,
Yeah, it was, right? I'm not sure. I think that's anymore. What's happening is that they have been given permission to come out from the covers and to show who they really are. Because look who's at the top. And he's surrounded himself by the same kind of guys. It's just...
And all these, even, George W. Bush, all these other people, the institutionalized piece of it, of which I'm concerned about, because those are the people getting into real power positions and really protected. Like, of course he's going to get 100 letters from a bunch of deep lawyers and judges saying he's a great guy, because that's what they do. They have each other's back. But I think it's interesting because, Paul, as you were saying, most males are beta males.
Yeah.
But they're aspiring to appear alpha, or they at least can easily be shamed into bad alpha behavior.
Sure.
And I see all these. I mean, I wouldn't let my son be in a fraternity. I'm sure there are some good fraternities, just like, I was in like the geeky, nerdy sorority. There were some sororities that were where we were geek band nerds and stuff. But, I think that's one place to look at it. You're sending your kid off to a party school or wherever. But even at Yale and Harvard, you get into, like the skull and bones and the this and that, and they're all allowed to do that. And everyone knows it, but no one talks about it. So I do think something has changed in the fact that in that group, I mean, literally that night, I was crying as the night, as each person started to come out. I think all of us women had been up late by ourselves drinking wine and, didn't want to go wake up a father or a husband. And the stories that came out, and I just thought, and then the people deciding, are they going to write about it? Are they going to put it in the paper? What are they going to do? So that there were that many women of high education and power coming out. And I was asking someone whose daughters have just gone off to college, did you warn them? Did you tell them? And they said, oh, yeah. But why should we even have to be warning young women that you're rape fodder?
Yeah, why is it up to women to have to defend themselves from men? I mean, really, in this day and age, have we not come far enough that men can treat everyone like human beings? Give us a call, 124-156-638-492. There's this rise among mostly white, not all white, this rise of men's and boys groups, like what's this new one? The Proud Boys movement, and the what was that one? The celibate ones, the incels, and
the
all
incels.
that.
Oh,
with this hatred against women, and the Proud Boys movement, apparently led by some old punk rocker called Gavin McGinnis, who's got himself a movement going on. Masculinity is in danger. Violence solves everything.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Women should be housewives. I don't apologize for creating the modern world. This is they call themselves Western chauvinists.
Oh, geez.
That America, above all, but the West is the epitome of greatness, and we shouldn't have to apologize or let other people bring it down.
So there's fear talking here.
Yes.
So what is the fear? What are they afraid of? It's I guess the obvious is loss of power.
Loss of power, loss of
Loss of being on top.
In a coffee-colored world, what is the white man? He's he stands out as something else, right?
Because who's really disempowered them are the rich white men.
Yeah.
It's like it's not women,
right?
That are.
Well,
taking
I think these groups are coming out of the natural fear that men have of women, anyway, right?
Well,
we're saying about that.
We're saying they and we're saying them, and I'd like to a little bit identify when we say they and them. Who are you talking about?
Well, I was just talking about this Proud Boys thing, which is,
a certain ilk.
Well, are we the people that go to say a Trump convention? Are we talking about them as the they? Are they one of the theys?
Well, the people who are joining him in his, yes, I'm afraid so.
So where do the women come in that Trump?
Yeah, exactly.
Into
where do
that
the women
Trump
come in? They're there.
Frenzy there.
They're the ones who are handing out the grain alcohol
to Jesus to girls like me, so they can gain brownie points.
Right.
Well, I think
Yeah, it's misguided. Yeah.
You're going to have women who are getting privilege through a man or getting things through a man. They're going to stand by that man.
Robin, you came up with a word that really I was wondering about, and you hit it as when the beta does alpha mask behavior. What is it that where they cross the line? And you said shame, and that really seemed to me to be right on in so many respects.
Yeah, because my husband, it was so clear, that it just. He wanted so hard to be part of that world, and it was a way, especially in the Deep South, to be successful and get a good job is to, be a good deek, be a Bear Bryant player. You'll end up with a car dealership one day. And it was not in his nature at all.
Mm. Yeah. Hey, we have another caller on the line.
Well, you guys, I'm going to pop off.
Thank you.
Okay,
Nice
well,
to
thanks
hear
for
you.
calling, Robin.
Thank you, Robin.
Keep listening. Thank you.
Be careful.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Whoa, caller, turn down your radio, please. You are on the air.
Thank you. My name's David. My radio was down.
Okay, I don't know. We were getting some kind of weird feedback.
Yeah, it might have been from that lady who popped off.
Okay.
Yeah, this is something that I've wondered about for a long time, and I think that you're being a little provincial in limiting it to modern white society, because you can find examples of this throughout many eons of history.
Yes.
And, look at the Arabic countries. Where
Yes, I was thinking the same thing.
Women are forced to cover up completely because the sight of any part of their flesh is overwhelming.
Right.
And in lots of other cultures, and about female genital mutilation, it seems like in so many societies, and I don't know, I don't have any idea about the proportion. Is it 50%? Is it 70-30? Is it 80-20 of societies where the men are the movers and shakers, and the women stay home and grind up the cornmeal?
Mm-hmm.
Right, there's very clearly defined roles.
And I think that's natural. But,
there's balance there.
But I wonder what part of what you guys are talking about is just part of nature, and that the movement for equality for both sexes is an anomaly. Is what? Not a crime against.
In
Well,
Africa,
I just got a knot in my stomach hearing you say those words. I think that we're talking about men treating other human beings with the due respect, and it's not so much about equality as it is how men are treating other people.
Well, that's true, but I'm saying that's been going on and is normal in many cultures over history.
Yeah. It's certainly been going on for a long time, and, does that mean it has to continue? It's certainly been the way for a long time that boys are brought up not to fuss, not to feel pain, not to have emotions and take it, suck it up, and then go on out into the world and take what's yours, all that stuff. I don't know. How long does it have to go on? That's the question.
Well, that is the question. I remember Merle Haggard wrote a song. Then the line was, "I'm a white boy looking for a place to do my thing." And that was 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to do a station break. This is KWMR, Point Reyes Station. Support for KWMR programming is provided by the California Film Institute, celebrating film and media as art, entertainment, and education at the Christopher B. Smith Reffell Film Center, the Mill Valley Film Festival, and through CFI education programs. Information at cafilm.org. Support for KWMR is provided by listeners and by CoverGirls Upholstery in Point Reyes Station, specializing in full-service upholstery, slipcovers, drapes, cushions, pillows, and fabrics for both indoor and outdoor use. CoverGirls is a priority dealer for Hunter Douglas window coverings and has been recovering West Marin for over 25 years. Now open by chance or by appointment. Information and appointments available by email at covergirlsupholstery@gmail.com or by phone at 415-663-9363. KWMR is supported by our listener members and by To Celebrate Life Breast Cancer Foundation, raising funds to help women and men living with breast cancer. Through its Bay Area Breast Cancer Grants Program, the foundation supports nonprofits that provide direct and emergency services and believes that no one should face breast cancer alone. Information about how to get involved is available at tocelebratelife.org. And you're listening to Let's Talk Call-In Radio. We're talking about toxic masculinity. The number to dial is 415-663-8492 or 8317 if you'd like to join the conversation.
Yeah. So, yes, I was thinking about how we're taught to be men and how the Me Too movement might change some of that. But it's really, I think we're still raising our boys to be, I don't know. Is there
part of the game?
It this way. Well, is it time for a different kind of masculinity? Of course it is. It always has been time for that. And there have always been different kinds of masculinity. It's just that the guys who are the stronger in the past, in the far distant past, it's the guys with all the weapons who set the norms, right? We don't hear history about the dressmaker in ancient Greece. We hear about the king who slaughtered 15 men with his bare hands, So these examples are put up for boys, for men, that this is what masculinity is supposed to be, that it's supposed to be violent, it's supposed to be physically powerful. If you're not physically powerful, are you a real man?
Do you think the action movies
yes.
play? I mean,
of course.
Seems to be one of the...
Of course.
Yeah.
I want to inject something very close to home here, and that is that I remember being up at the Circle B Ranch, and gosh, was it Max or Eli Hurwitz?
Jesus.
In spite of all the efforts to raise your children in a home that was free of influences like that, there was either Max or Eli biting his toast and making the shape of a gun out of it, and then picking it up and pointing it. And where did he get that?
Yeah,
it's it's in the DNA.
TV.
Is
it really? I don't know. I've heard a lot
of
stories about that.
You're not going to.
Well,
we had no guns in our in growing up. We did not. They were not even raised with television.
They never watched a Western.
There was no TV in our house.
Yeah,
and yet somehow that imprint got in there.
Yes, that's right. And, they've talked about little children picking up sticks and then turning them into a gun. It's just...
Yeah.
So you're saying that boys are naturally violent. This is the thing?
No, I don't think that's
I think it gets passed down, just like when kids are first in elementary school and they all draw that same picture of a house and a lollipop tree and puffy clouds and the sun up top. I did it when I went to school, and my kids did it when they went to school.
Why are girls attracted to pink?
Are they?
No, I think they are.
Are they? Or are they brought up with it?
Well, I think it's both.
Isn't it mothers who are attracted to pink?
I think it's both.
I think it's cultural. But so I was thinking about how women, what's women's role in this? Because women raise these men. Mm-hmm. Women date and marry these men, and some women, I think, do look the other way.
I'm going to keep toast out of the house. Max is not going to allow to have toast. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah.
All right.
This is the thing. So Jackson Katz, who is a wonderful guy who teaches leadership to men's organizations, and he's just great on this subject of toxic masculinity. It's what he's all about. His whole shtick is trying to wake men up to it. He was talking at a women's council meeting, and he said, this is rape and sexual assault is not a woman's problem; it's a man's problem. right? But all the onus goes on the women, and all the blame goes on the victim.
So that's the.
Why didn't they come forward when it happened?
Yeah, that's what we have to change. We have to change how we talk about these things. We have to flip it and reverse it.
Yes.
You know, when we hear things or read things, stop and ask yourself, is there another way to put this?
Right.
You know, because we're all conditioned through this culture.
Well, my question, though, is this, are we trying to go against nature?
I don't know. If you think that boys are naturally violent, I guess that would be true. I don't think that's true. I think it's certainly one of the things that we're supposed to be, or we're taught to be, or
you know, traditionally, right? Man is provider. Man provides for his family, for his wife. That's not a dangerous thing. Yeah. So that, I think, is what nature brings to the man, is you're strong, you're brave, go out there and kill the beast, bring it home, we can eat it.
Well, we do that violently.
But not to other people, not to the wife.
Amazingly enough, in hunter-gatherer societies, when the hunter goes out to hunt something, 90% of the time he doesn't bring anything home. What they eat mostly is what the women gather. So, you know.
Hey, we have another caller.
Okay, and I'm going to free this line up. But
thank you.
Thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you very much.
All right, caller, you are on the air. What's your name, please?
It's Robin again.
Hi, Robin.
Again.
I was listening to what you guys were talking about and what Dave brought up, and I think this is really interesting to me, and I think Paul and I have talked about this, and I think we're on the same page about it, that what's happening is that men aren't naturally violent. Men aren't naturally the providers.
Yeah.
Because this is, if you ever read Leonard Shlain's book, The Alphabet and the Goddess, he talks about pre-literate cultures were principally informed by holistic right-brain modes that venerated the goddess images, and feminine values.
Yeah.
And duties and things were shared. There was not man provider. Well, it was like that caveman way. And then when we developed the alphabet, which uses the left brain, and we started to put immediately, it meant you had to have people to translate for you. It meant there was a power structure. You couldn't know or learn things unless you were literate, and and it was a barrier. And then it shifted. And I was actually talking, and it's a really, really interesting book. And before Dr. Shlain passed away, I was talking to him at a conference, and he was saying that he believes that we are, whether we realize it or not, we're shifting back to right brain. He said the fact that we're going more and more, especially with computers and visuals, that we are going more and more visual. That he thinks that our brains, there's that plasticity to the brain, and that by pushing more and more for us to come back into a goddess connection, into that connection to the planet, to Earth, that will shift the young men that are growing up and the young women that are growing up. And so he thought that there were some positive things that were going to be happening that way. So I'll hop off the line again.
Okay.
But I just thought, let's talk about what it really used to be like way before.
Yeah, exactly.
We do have examples.
Exactly. Thank you, Robin.
Thanks for calling. We have another caller.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that again, history is told by males, about mostly male leaders. And who are the male leaders? They're the ones with the big armies who went out and chopped other people's heads off. That's
dear. Okay. Well, caller, you are on the air. What's your name?
My name is Ingrid.
Hey,
Hi, Ingrid. Thanks for calling.
Hey, I just tuned in 5 minutes ago, so I don't know what you've already talked about.
That's okay.
On the question of, whether men are naturally violent, I mean, let's put that aside for a minute and say, as far as sexual assault goes in our society, I don't know if you've talked about this, but I think it's a lot of it is due to our repressive sexual attitudes.
Sure.
Right.
And so I don't know if...
yeah, I think that, for me, that's coming out of, religion. We're seeing that heavily in our political system right now that the religious people want to take over our government and make us all do as they believe.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I think there would be less sexual assault if our whole attitude towards sexuality was more natural.
Right. I agree.
Yes.
If you just look at statistics, where did the United States fall in terms of sexual, aggressiveness versus other countries? I'm
what
just
do you
asking
got?
that question.
Oh, you don't.
I'm asking the question.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, somebody
Let's
Google
look
it.
I have, considering we have more prisoners, I'm going to say we fall pretty high.
Yeah, compare it to France, for example. I bet you'll be
Right.
right.
But yeah, whenever you have something that you feel shame about and you have to be sneaky and hidden, and you don't want to talk about it, and it's veiled in all this mystery, and then you have people encouraging you to do things against other people, and it becomes the normal or acceptable. That's scary.
Mm.
Well, and our media are socializing young men as well. But
I'm driving
movies.
reception here soon, so
Okay.
I'll get off the line. But
Thank
just
you.
wanted to throw that on the table there for you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
calling.
very much, Ingrid.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Yeah, and this thing about that sexual repression, of course, adds to the blaming of the victim, right? I mean,
Yeah.
again,
What were you wearing?
Yeah,
What were you doing in that place
were
at that
you
hour?
drunk? Why
Wow.
were you in his room? Well,
Yeah.
why shouldn't women be allowed to be anywhere that men are without being fearful for their bodies, their lives?
Yeah.
It's just awful.
Yeah.
I don't know how does it?
Well, and
how
there's
do
all
mothers
this-
bring up boys like that? I mean, are mothers
Somebody-
negating
I
not
don't know. I
living up
think-
to their duties? What's the deal?
They're there's some women that have bought into that story,
Sure.
that line of reasoning
Sure.
that, boys will be boys, and
Just locker room talk?
right,
It's just
and
locker room talk.
and then the secret societies, that men like to create. Maybe it's just in their man caves, where they can all
Bohemian Grove, a local
tip back
example.
the beers, and
Yep.
but yeah.
But you did bring up the question as to what part do women play in that socialization in terms of what they expect from their boys in terms of aggressive behavior.
Right. So I think we all need to encourage a new conversation between women and between men, and between men and women. When we hear people saying, that's just the way it is, and accepting things as normal that really are abhorrent, that we need to start speaking up and flipping it, and saying, maybe there is a different way.
Well, so the hope is that with all the women who are vying for elected positions now this year, that things will start to change. I'm not saying that women are better human beings than men in general, but I'm guessing that there will be a different way, perhaps, of operating in the world.
We'll see.
We'll see. I think it's not. I think it's really worth a try to have more women around, because men, when they're around women, and they're not, trying to rape them, when men are around women, they behave differently. And if we can break down this, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, if we can break down this culture that we have of the boys, especially the white boys in power, and they can do whatever they like, which is so apparent now. I mean, they're obviously going to do whatever they like. They're going to vote in Kavanaugh tomorrow and whatever. The ones in power can do whatever they like. We call it democracy. It's not a democracy. It's an oligarchy, right? I mean, it's a plutocracy. It's being run by the corporate world, which is a whole nother layer of the onion of this culture that we built that's all around white men getting as much as they can out of the world and out of other people and putting everything is competition, right?
I heard a conversation right on this station that was talking about rape culture. And that was the first time I had heard the concept of rape culture. But the idea being that this country, the United States of America, was founded on rape culture, on taking over, on annihilating, on having power over, just whether it's the land, that they decided belonged to them.
Yep.
Whether it's the genocide of Native Americans, indigenous tribes that were already here, and the white man came and just said, "Oh, they're less than us. We must get rid of the vermin."
Including, may I say, Saint John Muir.
Right, the whole missions
in Yosemite. Drive them out.
So. Yeah, it's from the root of the very beginnings of this country. It's been this way, and I feel like
when I walk out the front door,
it's starting to shift finally.
When I walk
because
out
of
the
awareness,
door,
right? Yeah,
I look at men in a completely new way? I'm going to walk out there.
Well, so here's the thing, Shelley. Tell us how you look at men when you walk out the door. Are you aware of who's around you? Are you taking defensive action? Do you walk places at night?
I'm very intuitive.
This is how women live in the world. It's very different from how men live in the world.
Yeah. I mean,
because of men.
When I lived in a city, in downtown Long Beach, I do remember walking down the street and needing to be mindful. And I remember noticing someone was following me. And having to make a choice on what to do. One time I was pumping gas, and I very, casually gave a glance and a smile to some man that was also pumping gas, and then I looked away. But when I drove out of that gas station, he was following me. And I had to make a cut to get away. But at the same time, I don't go around seeing all men as scary beings.
No.
I really do rely on my gut intuition to tell me whether I really need to be on the alert and paying attention. But, I don't know.
I saw a list. I mean, when we were writing the book, we saw a list as well of things that women should do especially if they live in a city. Car keys in your fist, ready.
Right. I've done that.
Right. You wait until the garage door, if you're in the suburbs, you wait until the garage door is completely closed before you get out of your car. When you leave your garage, you wait until the garage door is completely closed before you leave to make sure no man goes in your garage and is waiting for you when you get home. I mean, men don't think about this stuff at all. It doesn't even occur to them to think about that. When I was in cities or when I was in foreign places, places I didn't know, I was always had my radar going just because, you want to be aware of what's going on around you. But none of that was ever a thing for me. For men, I'm guessing. Most men don't walk down the street clutching their keys with the keys between their fingers so they can
jab somebody in the eye.
Mm-hmm. Right? And this is just common knowledge among women. Men just go, oh, yeah, well, whatever.
Yeah.
How can this change? I mean, something has to shift. And the only hope in my opinion, the only hope we have is that there will be more women in positions of power. And then things will...
And I would say good women.
Change.
I mean, just like we need good men in positions of power and good. So what does good mean?
So what do women have to do to get those positions of power? Do they become more like men to get those?
Well, in the past, I think that's been true because there's been so few of them. But the few that there have been have at least made it possible, maybe not in this country, that a woman can actually be a prime minister or a president. Maybe not here. But in many places, that ceiling is broken, and so suddenly it's okay that there are women in positions of power in corporations. And in Iceland, the women went on strike famously. In 1975, 90% of women went on strike at work and at home because of low pay, inequality. Housework was not respected as being useful. They just wanted respect and they wanted some equality. And now it's, how many women prime ministers they have? 4, I think, 4 or 5.
And I think
since 1972.
In California, didn't they just pass a law that corporate boards must have
They did.
women
You must have
included.
a woman at least on the board.
At least one.
I think so, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I was thinking
but
about
your point
this.
about them, do they have to become more like men? I think that's certainly been the case in the past, but now it doesn't have to. If there's enough of a block of women around, they'll still be in this ridiculous system that we're working on, but maybe the system will start to shift a little bit.
I've been asking myself a question. I don't have the answer because I haven't really researched it yet. But in companies where a woman is the CEO, is there equal pay for equal work? It would just be interesting to find out.
Don't know. Somebody Google it and call us.
I plan on doing that.
663-8492. The failure to separate masculinity. So, the more you read, the conservative, conservative writers, people who don't want to talk about being toxically masculine, they think we're talking about all men. It's not about all men. It's about the difference between masculinity and toxic masculinity. So what is it?
Right. So being aware of how, I would say to a man who's in the midst of toxic masculinity, to start to notice how you feel when you go along with the crowd. And pay attention to it and make a choice. Does this feel right for me? Is this the right thing to do? So I was thinking about the leadership, whether it's a man or a woman in leadership, that to start leading with more empathy,
yes,
with more respect for everyone. And I think that's what we're seeing missing right now. A lack of listening as well. I think, actually hearing what's said and responding to it appropriately. And when, looking at the Kavanaugh hearing, I'm not seeing that.
No.
It's shocking, really.
It is shocking. But see, nothing matters
Everyone
anymore.
is watching, and these still are going to push this guy through no matter what.
Well, because that's been, this is a whole other topic, but that's been the plan for 30 years at least. 40 years. They've been. This is what they've been putting in place. They take over the judiciary completely.
Their strategy.
I was telling you earlier, the guys on this committee don't care if they don't get reelected. They're all older guys. They're still going to get their pension, their health care paid for. They'll join corporations on boards and get paid millions of dollars for nothing, just for their name. They don't care if women don't like them. They're just putting all this in place. Which is what they've been working on. If Kavanaugh gets in, it's the last piece in this puzzle where they take over the federal courts. This guy Kavanaugh is what? What kind of judge is he?
Oh, he's a
circuit court judge.
Yeah.
Federal circuit judge. So,
district court.
Yeah. So they're taking over. They've managed to do that, and that was the entire plan. Because what is a normal person's recourse when things go wrong? When you want to fight injustice, what do? You go to the courts. There you go.
Okay. Just one last thought here, but I'm sure we can't talk about. Is this akin to racism? Are these brothers and sisters? The attitudes and the actions, etc.
Well, yeah, misogyny is akin to racism, right?
Sure. Sexism is racism.
Yeah,
it's just like it.
Treating someone differently or poorly based purely on their gender.
Yes. Another fascinating topic. Well, and I feel so much better now. This has been...
Got it all out.
Let's talk. Thank you, Shelley. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Paul. I want to thank all our listeners and our callers today. Thank you, Robin, for calling from Alabama. Good heavens. Hope you'll tune in every Thursday because we're always talking about something here. And we want to hear what you want to say and what you know. We need the knowledge of the community to help us understand some of these things. KWMR does not take a stand on any of the issues discussed on Let's Talk. Opinions expressed on this program are those of the hosts and callers and don't necessarily reflect the views of KWMR, its board of directors, underwriters, or members. Thank you. We'll be back next week.